Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.
Vergil Ortiz's latest win has not only caused chaos in the boxing world, but also among the top partners of Golden Boy Promotions.
So, I'm not fooled by what people might be saying about.
After feuding with Canelo Berlanga and Shakur Stevenson, Oscar De La Hoya has chosen his partner, Bernard Hopkins, as his next victim.
To see, yeah, he won, but will he win this way with Crawford?
Finally, Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins are back to where they started after a heated argument happened between the pair. It got so serious that it almost led to a brawl until those on the scene got in between them to separate them.
Like Corte.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Bernard right now.
Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins have been business partners for years, and there's been no animosity between them until now. So, what could cause this sudden uproar in the Camp Golden Boy Promotions?
Whoa. Nice shot over the top.
Well, a Golden Boy fighter had one of the most controversial wins of the year on Saturday night, and it raised several questions among fans and professionals of the sport. Shockingly, one of those who didn't find the win so convincing was Bernard Hopkins, who honored an interview after the fight and spoke doubtfully about Ortiz's win and his future. This was the genesis of their feud.
Both fighters, big heart, big win. This crowd is getting their dollars worth.
While Bernard Hopkins wasn't so pleased with the win, Oscar De La Hoya was so overconfident that he blasted the boxing knowledge of those who questioned the win. This clash of opinions wasn't really brought up in the first few hours after the fight until Oscar De La Hoya learned of Bernard Hopkins' interview. While Bernard Hopkins sounded quite doubtful, Oscar De La Hoya isn't holding back.
It was a close fight. Vergil attacked the entire night. Bohacek.
The legendary promoter took to social media in a fiery defense of his fighter, Vergil Ortiz Jr., following the young boxer's controversial victory over WBC interim junior middleweight champion, Serhii Bohachuk. The fight, which went down last Saturday night, has been the talk of the boxing world, and not in a good way. Fans are buzzing, and De La Hoya's social media rant only poured gasoline on the fire.
Obviously deserves all the credit in the world.
The controversy centers on the CompuBox stats, which De La Hoya decided to post as a rebuttal to the criticism Vergil Jr. has been facing.
But Vergil won.
Why do you feel he won in your opinion?
But here's the kicker. The stats didn't do Ortiz any favors. According to the numbers, Bohachuk outperformed Ortiz, but the judges didn't see it that way, much to the dismay of fans who believe the Nevada judges were off their game that night.
He was pressing the fight. There were not two knockdowns.
De La Hoya's response, a scorching post on X laced with frustration. You don't know about boxing and the new Vergil Ortiz.
So, I'm not fooled by what people might be saying.
This was in contrast to Bernard Hopkins, who after the fight said, "It is what it is. You sometimes get ugly wins that could be questioned. I think Crawford is a bit far. He's got to get rid of this ugly performance first."
To get excited about. I would like to see Vergil based on Saturday.
And when they met after Bernard Hopkins' interview, Oscar De La Hoya questioned who he would ever talk down at their fighter or support his opponent. And while he said that, Bernard Hopkins slammed him for choosing to lie and go against what's clear for all to see. This was the straw that broke Oscar De La Hoya's back, as he soon burst out in fury and thrusted himself towards Bernard Hopkins to hit him. But before he could, he was stopped by those with them.
This Saturday, how he looks, how he executes, and how he wins.
Sadly, Oscar De La Hoya was barking up the wrong tree. CompuBox doesn't lie, it just reports the punches. And those stats painted a picture that wasn't exactly flattering for Ortiz Jr. Despite De La Hoya's best efforts, fans know what they saw, and they're not buying the narrative he's trying to sell.
That it gives me a blueprint to see, yeah, he won.
In the aftermath, De La Hoya, along with Ortiz's trainer Robert Garcia, wasted no time calling out Terence Crawford as the next opponent for Ortiz Jr. Bold move, but is it the right one? The backlash from the Bohachuk fight isn't going away, and jumping into a fight with Crawford without addressing the controversy could spell disaster for the PPV numbers.
Did they change?
Yeah, so they did the instant replay.
Fans don't want to see what they consider a tainted fight, and that's a risk De La Hoya should think twice about. And let's not forget Crawford's own recent bout of questionable decision over WBA junior middleweight champ Israel Madrimov, Crawford didn't look his best, and some say he got lucky with the judges. Pairing two fighters coming off contentious wins could be a recipe for disaster at the box office. So what's the move? Instead of lashing out at CompuBox and fans, De La Hoya might want to consider giving Bohachuk the rematch he deserves.
Yeah. The second
Counted
one
the
did
first
look like
one.
a slip.
Yeah, it was a slip, but Virgil Ortiz pressed the whole night.
It's the only way to clear the air and give Ortiz Jr. a chance to prove he's the real deal. If Virgil can't take care of Bohachuk cleanly, his future against top-tier talent at 154 pounds looks bleak. The reality is, Virgil Ortiz Jr. might not be the next big thing De La Hoya is hyping him up to be.
Tough Bohachuk. And I said it was going to be a fight of the year.
As one insider put it, Ortiz is looking more like a modern-day Alfredo Angulo, a solid fighter. Sure, but not someone who's going to dominate the sport. And if he doesn't get it together, he's going to hit a wall real soon. On Fight Night, Virgil Ortiz Jr. refuted all that Serhii Bohachuk and the boxing world threw at him Saturday night, enduring 2 knockdowns and the gripes that he had never gone the distance by winning a heartfelt junior middleweight majority decision at Mandalay Bay.
Big right hand from Bohachuk, and another one.
Texas's Ortiz won by scores of 113, 113, 114, 112, 114, 112 by answering knockdowns in the first and 8th rounds with voluminous power punches. While those hammering blows have reduced so many other foes to oblivion, Ukraine's Bohachuk was an immovable object, taking the shots to the head and body and continually responding with power rights and resilient brawn.
Boom. And Virgil right back.
That forced Ortiz into the deep waters past the 9th round for the first time in his career, and while it appeared Ortiz might be headed to his first defeat, he rallied impressively in the 11th and 12th, finally sending Bohachuk reeling in the final frame to gain the decisive margin. Ortiz said it was due to his lifelong consistency of showing up at the gym and living cleanly since childhood. "I'm the best in the world," he said after strapping on the WBC interim junior middleweight belt he took from Bohachuk.
Otherworldly recuperative abilities from Bohachuk.
He might indeed have the chance to prove it too, because Saudi Arabia's boxing power broker Turki Alalshik was sitting ringside after telling DAZN he wanted a victorious Ortiz, 26, to meet newly belted 4-division and WBA junior middleweight title holder Terence Crawford. "Let's do it," a smiling Ortiz said. "I want it so bad." The action was instantly riveting, with Ortiz unleashing heavy bomb rights and referee Harvey Dock calling it a first-round slip when a Bohachuk right landed cleanly to the head. Replay, employed before the 5th round, reversed the call and gave Bohachuk a knockdown in a 10-8 round.
Mechanic right hand. What a round of...
Ortiz showed he wasn't hurt by sending hard blows toward Bohachuk throughout the round's remainder. The exchange was more of a mutual affair in the 2nd and 3rd, as each man landed crushing blows that were both encouraging and discouraging, because neither man backed or budgeted. While Ortiz belted Bohachuk with a wicked right uppercut, Bohachuk answered with a straight right that didn't pause the relentless fighter, who had known nothing but knockout triumphs. A small cut on the bridge of Ortiz's nose emerged in the 4th.
A spectacular fight between Bohachuk and Ortiz.
After the bad news of the replay ruling, Ortiz again took the setback well, pounding Bohachuk's body and repeating that attention in the 6th, leading to a dramatic exchange. In the 8th, Bohachuk scored his 2nd knockdown on a lead left hook to the head, which dropped Ortiz to his left knee. He protested to Dock to no avail. A cut over Ortiz's left eye emerged in the 9th. Bohachuk snapped a crisp right to the head and appeared to seize the momentum through the 10th until Ortiz repeatedly smashed Bohachuk with rights throughout the 11th. Bohachuk finally weakened in the 12th after getting bashed by an Ortiz punch, losing his footing and briefly staggering backward, where he was met with more abuse. A glove tape malfunction seconds later gave Bohachuk a respite, but the pair finished as they started, exchanging power rights. Bohachuk grinned when asked how it felt to lose despite scoring 2 knockdowns, and his promoter, Tom Loeffler, protested, "Look at Virgil's face." But De La Hoya then had the mic, asking the fans, "Were you not entertained? That was the fight of the year."
Whoa. Nice shot over the top.
On Thursday, De La Hoya told Boxing Scene he perceived the frontrunner for a victorious Ortiz to be a victorious Tim Tszyu if the former WBO title holder could regain a 154-pound belt as mandatory challenger to IBF belt holder Bakram Murtazaliev in the fall. Things changed as swiftly as words leaving the lips of Al-Sheikh, with Al-Sheikh telling DAZN's Beto Duran in a pre-fight interview that he wanted Ortiz to meet the 36-year-old Crawford. De La Hoya briefly mentioned that Tszyu was also in the mix, but then quickly sensed what the crowd wanted to hear.
But that will be ruled a slip. And you see the smile from both fighters, a right hand.
Al-Sheikh also mentioned he wanted to see Golden Boy's top-ranked lightweight contender, William Zepeda, to meet unbeaten 3-division and WBC lightweight titleist Shakur Stevenson. Who wants to see Virgil Ortiz Crawford and Shakur Stevenson William Zepeda on the same card? De La Hoya roared to the arena's crowd, raising his arms to increase the frenzy. The fans returned to their feet many times throughout the main event. Yes, indeed, they'd love to see that.
Seemed to connect, but clearly the footwork issue, the bigger issue at play there as ruled by...
While the fight ended victoriously for Golden Boy Promotions, the feud between the two stakeholders isn't something good for the promotion agency. Hopefully, they can find a way to get over their differences, but if they don't, it simply means the pair would be returning to how they were before their collaboration in Golden Boy Promotions. The date was September 18th, 2004, and in the 9th round of his undisputed middleweight title fight with Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins smelt blood.
That was a nice left hand underneath by Oscar.
Stalking his prey as he had done all evening long, Hopkins lines one devastating left hook to the Golden Boy's body, and De La Hoya crumpled in pain as he suffered his first knockout defeat of his pro career, writhing in too much pain to watch Hopkins somersault in celebration. Of the 65 professional fights he participated in, that fight against De La Hoya can be looked back upon as the one that shaped the man known as the Executioner's legacy on two fronts.
This could be the end for...
With his famous body blow knockout, Hopkins managed to unify the four major sanctioning bodies' middleweight titles: World Boxing Association, World Boxing Council, World Boxing Organization, and International Boxing Federation, in addition to the lineal and the ring middleweight belts. This was an accomplishment that cemented Hopkins' place within boxing's annals as one of the best to ever do it. But perhaps more important than the achievement and glory of his victory over De La Hoya is what was announced a few months after their fight. In November 2004, it was revealed that Hopkins had joined De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions. This is a partnership that extended as he continued to fight into his 40s and early 50s, earning himself the nickname The Alien in the process, before he officially retired as a pro fighter following a scary knockout loss to Joe Smith Jr. that saw him fall through the ropes on Deck 17, 2016. Now, years after he first partnered with the man he so painfully knocked out to become the modern-day legend he's seen as, Hopkins is using his platform and that partnership he forged with De La Hoya to take on a different kind of fight.
Perfect. Dr. Rakan. Yeah.
Right now, we're in the business of promoting, and we are setting the standards that maybe not all, but those that choose to do it and are sincere, that they can be the next us in the future, Hopkins said last week, sitting in a boxing gym in Toronto. With the gloves officially hung up, Hopkins was now fully committed to life as a promoter and has been on the promotional trail for arguably boxing's biggest attraction, Saul Canelo Alvarez. Looking back at that Hopkins-De La Hoya tilt, the way both fighters got paid out was always a talking point of the bout. Hopkins, despite being every bit the talent De La Hoya was as far as boxing skills went, was paid $20 million less, taking $10 million to De La Hoya's $30 million payday.
This is my round.
I'm setting him up with the jab. I believe I flew a jab. And then I leaned to the left and hit him right under the liver. That's one of the great body shots. Yeah, that was and that right there, I heard like a wind come out. And then I went up with a little left hook.
This was mainly because De La Hoya was the face of boxing at the time and commanded greater pay-per-view appeal, but back then Hopkins was distrustful of promoters and felt he had to do things himself. I didn't trust the promoters, I didn't trust the advisors or the managers. Sometimes I looked in the mirror and I didn't even trust myself because I know how intoxicating this sport can be, said Hopkins.
Understand that because the great ones that came up from wherever they came up off the ground.
As such, Hopkins experienced many growing pains as he continued to fight, but now as a full-time promoter, he's hoping to impart those lessons he learned to the next generation, with Alvarez being chief among them. I was always in a promoter role while I was fighting, because if you look at what Bernard Hopkins said, delightful or distasteful, when you looked at Bernard Hopkins as a guy who never shut up, always continued to have a sound bite or a question or an answer back, I was promoting way before my career was over, Hopkins said.
Out of the penitentiary, anywhere else, and they became great. But it's very few who will continue to keep that mindset.
I realized when a promoter wasn't promoting me the way I think he should, I had to do things to get people's attention. Some of it was distasteful, some of it historic, bad or good, and I got you to write about it. I couldn't control what you write, I couldn't control what you think, and that's any media personality that's representing that paper, TV network, or social media. Once I understood that, it became a game changer. From Graterford Penitentiary, where he first picked up the sport and famously told the warden upon his release, "I ain't ever coming back here," to multiple-time world champion and now promoter extraordinaire, Hopkins has lived quite the blessed boxing life.
That it ain't over until it's over. And Ryan's career starts with this fight here, as far as I'm concerned.
And to think, that third act all started after he destroyed his future partner's kidneys. If we had a great friendship before the partnership, I would never have hit him that hard to the body. However, the relationship between Oscar De La Hoya hasn't been one free from controversies with boxing fighters, especially Ryan Garcia. Just December last year, Mexican boxer Ryan Garcia started throwing punches even before the fight against Oscar Duarte. Although the blows were verbal this time, one of his hooks hit Bernard Hopkins directly in the jaw.
That my coach does, my team does, everybody that, grinds with me day in and day out, that's who decides, and ultimately God decides.
In the middle of the year, Garcia filed a lawsuit trying to terminate his contract with Golden Boy Promotions, a company owned by Oscar De La Hoya and of which Hopkins is a minority partner. Garcia did not achieve his goal, but since then, he has held a grudge against the company and De La Hoya and Hopkins in particular. That resentment exploded during the press conference the week of the fight against Oscar Duarte. Among other things, King Garcia accused De La Hoya of supporting Duarte. "It's very clear to me that they're backing this guy to beat me. They're saying he's the next Mexican star," said the fighter.
Not him. Oscar is saying that, we misinterpret, what they say. It's plain English. I didn't hear anybody speaking any language I don't know.
However, Garcia's main target was multi-time middleweight champion Bernard Hopkins. The Mexican said he was especially upset since Hopkins assured him that he would decide the Mexican's retirement date. "He doesn't decide that. My coach does, my team does, and everybody that grinds with me day in and day out. Ultimately, God decides, not him," Garcia claimed during the meeting with the press. Nobody was telling him, Hopkins, when to stop boxing. He stopped boxing at 45? So kudos to him, but he doesn't determine that, stressed the Mexican. However, the blow that made Hopkins stagger was when Garcia reminded him,
What they say, it's plain English. I didn't hear anybody speaking any language I don't know. So, it's very clear to me that, they're backing this guy to beat me just like they thought, was going to beat me. He was the next Filipino star. They say he's the next Mexican star.
Last time I checked, he said he'd never lose to a white boy. Then Joe Smith Jr. knocked him out of the ring. Last time I checked, Joe Smith Jr. It's white. So they are lying. Garcia did not lose sight of Duarte. Despite all the problems and claims against Golden Boy Promotions and its owners, Ryan never lost sight of the bout against Oscar Duarte, as he eventually won. He warned, "At the end of the day, I come to show what I bring and I'm laser focused. That's where this confidence comes from."
That, they're backing this guy to beat me just like they thought, was going to beat me. He was the next Filipino star. They say he's the next Mexican star.
But they all soon squashed their beef and supported themselves when it was Garcia's next fight against Devin Haney. Before the fight, Ryan Garcia had made several questionable comments in public, which led people to show concern for his mental health. Besides claiming his life was under threat, the 35-year-old announced he felt unbearable pain. At this, several people from the boxing world wondered whether or not King Rai would ultimately face Devin Haney on April 20th. However, Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins informed the media that Garcia was fine in their eyes. And while Bernard Hopkins admitted King Rai succeeded in receiving the kind of attention he needed to promote the fight, De La Hoya believed Garcia would knock out the Dream.
See.
On being asked if everything was alright with Ryan Garcia, Oscar De La Hoya replied positively. According to him, Garcia's behavior on social media is best described as trolling. And speaking of Garcia's mental health, the CEO of Golden Boy Promotions said, "Yeah, look, I'm obviously not a doctor, and I don't know much about mental health." However, De La Hoya believed Garcia was fine enough to KO Devin Haney. "All I know is that when I talk to him, when I see him, he looks like a beast. Don't underestimate him. It's going to be interesting when he gets inside that ring against Devin Haney. Man, I can even picture it. Ryan got a knockout," Oscar De La Hoya told Fight Hype.
Pro fight. And I told Ryan in the dressing room, it ain't how you start, it's how you finish.
Along these lines, De La Hoya called Devin Haney one of the best talents in the sport. And expecting a great fight, Oscar added, "When Ryan fights, it's always exciting." Meanwhile, Bernard Hopkins believed Garcia would display his determination and skills on the 20th of April. According to Bernard Hopkins, due to the comments Ryan Garcia made on social media, King Rai has received the attention he needed. Therefore, all Hopkins now wants Garcia to do is translate the attention into a win. "I know that in this sport there is a lot of history, but I know Ryan's going to put all of what he believes and what he knows to work," said Hopkins.
This is really time that you're going to gather yourself in that moment. Then at the end, you can do all the hype, jump the ropes, do all you want. But in the meantime,
to be able to go and show people that he's still relevant. And that really, I think, would be displayed come next month, added Bernard. And that's all for now. For the very best updates on news, moments, events, and actions in the world of boxing, stay connected with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications to get notified when we drop quality contents like this. Until next time, peace out.